What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to continue our series on the House Ways and Means Committee subcommittee on Social Security. This is Representative Estes. He's going to be asking questions of Mr. Bisignano. Mr. Bisignano is the Social Security Commissioner. And so hopefully we'll learn more about Social Security reform, and their plan moving forward when it comes to providing services. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look and listen to Representative Estes asking questions of Mr. Bisignano. Here we go.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll now proceed to the question and answer session, and I'll start with myself. Commissioner Bisignano, Social Security is entrusted with some of the most personal data of virtually every American. There's been a lot of reporting and speculation about inappropriate access of personal data by DOJ and others, which have caused my constituents concerned about whether their personal data is being protected at the Social Security Administration. What can you tell me about the protections that are in place at the SSA, and what can you tell my constituents about how you're handling that data that they have entrusted to you as head of the SSA? Is their data safe?
Our data is safe. Social Security has always had a high level of security over PII, and I've overviewed it. I'd like to say I spent my career protecting PII in the largest financial institutions. And so we have very strong protocols on access to it and very tight security around it. I feel very, very comfortable that our PII is protected well.
Well, thank you very much, because people are concerned about their personal identification and personal identified information, or PII, and appreciate your response and oversight for that.
Now, the one question that I have is, you have people who have access, and he's talking about DOJ, so people who have access to this information, but what is their background? Do they go through background clearance and all of that? We don't know that information because we don't even know who those individuals are. And so that's what I'm concerned with, because you're saying that it's secure, but we don't know the people who have access to it and what their motive is, and they could sell it to other people. I mean, we hear all these stories, and some of these stories are true, where they get your information and they sell it on the dark web. We hear about that. And so if we don't have any accountability when it comes to DOJ, we don't even know who these individuals are that have access to this information, then that's a problem, because you have people who have access that you don't have any idea who they are. And I've told this story before, but I'm going to say it again. I remember, and I work for local government, work for county government, and anytime someone who didn't work for the government came in, let's say you needed a plumber to come in and fix toilets or what have you, that individual had to be escorted throughout the building. You had to have someone with them, walking with them throughout the building. And so when they're doing their business, you're there. And it used to be one of those assignments that you wanted to get because you didn't have to do anything. Basically, you bring a book or you bring your phone, and you would just sit while this person worked, and you made sure that this individual wasn't going into different rooms and gaining access to people's documents and things like that, going into a file cabinet and pulling out documents. So that was your whole job. And so for 8 hours or 10 hours for that day, you would just be standing by, just sitting there. And I remember we had major construction being done in one of our facilities. And you would get that assignment, and you would love it, because you would just sit there for 8 hours, and you were just making sure they weren't going into other areas where they shouldn't be going. So I mean, when it comes to having DOJ, having, this outside company come in and have access to all this, documentation, that is pretty scary, because you don't know what their motives are. And you hear this all the time. I'm just talking about the situation where you're escorting people throughout the building, but you do hear stories of people that are working, they come from another company, or they were secretly put there, and they're in there and they're gaining information on people. And this is not just government agencies. Could you imagine, like, if Coca-Cola, they have their recipe, and Pepsi and all these different companies have their secret recipes, Could you imagine if someone came in and they were able to get that recipe? And it would be the same situation in these major companies where you would probably have security escorting these people around if they needed to fix a toilet or do what have you, because they don't want that access out there just to anyone. And so that's the reason why they do that.
Since the start of the administration, there have been reports of field office closures and other unverifiable claims that the SSA is purposely closing offices customers need to be able to access. Can you set the record straight today? Have any field offices closed since the beginning of the Trump administration?
I think factually, there was one field office that was moved because of problem with a landlord. And there were 21 conference hearing rooms that were handed back to GSA because we do virtual conferences in our disability hearings, and they hadn't been used in 2 years. There were not field office closures. There were no, and field offices will remain forever. It's a way many people want to come see us, and we're going to be there. You know, not everybody has broadband. Not everybody has the technology required, although, you know, over 90% of our constituents, it appears, does. But field offices will be here forever.
And so let's talk a little bit about field offices. And so what they were saying when it comes to field offices, DOJ had a list. Okay, and they had 26, I believe it was 26 field offices this year that their lease would be up. The talk was that they were just not going to renew those leases. Okay, and they were adding that to this DOJ counter, so the money that was being saved. And that's why some of the news outlets picked this up, because they were looking and they were comparing the cost savings that DOJ was putting out there to some of these offices that they weren't going to renew leases on, or they didn't plan on renewing leases on. So that's how they were going to close the office. It wasn't going to be the Social Security Administration saying, okay, we're going to close these offices. It was just going to be something as simple as the lease would be up and they wouldn't continue paying the lease. That was the plan there that DOJ had. So it was like 26 offices that they were talking about this year. So we'll see if this happens later this year, because it wasn't immediate. It was going to be later down the road. But the Social Security Administration is going to need to either continue paying these leases, but if they decide not to, then yes, those offices will close, and that will mean that you're going to have to shuffle around people. And another thing, and I don't know if he's going to touch on this, but you have 7,000 less employees at the Social Security Administration. So if you have 7,000 less employees, I mean, you could think, okay, if you have 7,000 less employees, you don't need as many offices. And so are they going to keep the same amount of offices? I don't know. You saw that Mr. Bisignano didn't say that they weren't going to close offices. He just said that they will still provide that service. So we'll still have field offices forever, basically, is what he's saying. But that doesn't mean they might not reduce the amount of field offices that they have.
The SSA Office of the Inspector General recently completed an audit of the failed Next Generation Telephony Project, or NGTP, where they found that the SSA spent more than $160 million to build a new phone system that was only used for 10 months before being abandoned. Not only did that failed investment lead to a waste of tens of millions of dollars from the taxpayers, but it also resulted in worse service than the old system it was intended to replace when it was in use. What lessons has SSA learned from this failed contract?
Well, once a week, I meet and our chief financial officer and a couple other members, our head of budget, on any procurement that we're going to make for more than $250,000. And a lot of times those people have to go back because they haven't been thought through well enough. We're building a discipline in the agency of every dollar matters. And a contract of that size and scale should never have that problem because it needs to be owned at the top. And we're trying to set a tone at the top about we're going to pay attention to every detail. We're going to get it right. And we're gonna deliver in every aspect of the business, sir.
Well, thank you. Yeah, as you pointed out, good contract management, good vendor management is so important in having successful contracts and arrangements. I just want to highlight that this is a Republican and a Democrat bipartisan concern about the topic. So as you continue to work with OIG and Congress to help prevent future contracting mismanagements. And
Yeah. I would say we've also implemented another thing that we've never done before, which is to meet regularly with OIG on their recommendations, reconcile where we are on those recommendations, and making sure that we're in complete agreement. We actually learned in the process of going through all of OIG's that in their last report, there's probably 100 items that we're still going back and forth on. So having a good relationship with the IG is very important, and us working hand in hand, and those things have never been done before.
well, great, thank you. Before I recognize Mr. Neal for his questions, I want to provide another example of how your emphasis on expanding online service and providing common sense solution is resulting in real improvements to service. Without objection, I'd like to enter into the record a letter from the National Organization of Social Security Claimants Representatives that recounts how a new online secure portal that provides claimants and their representatives with basic data on the status of their claims, which has likely reduced calls from claimant representatives to the SSA by more than 30,000 per month. That's 30,000 more calls from our constituents that can now be answered because of this solution. Without objection, I'll enter this into the record.
Okay, so that was Representative Estes asking questions of Mr. Bisignanu. I really wish these politicians, some of them that are asking these softball questions and pretty much asking questions that you don't even need to ask the question because the information is already there. I mean, you're not really trying to learn anything. You're just trying to make this person, Mr. Bisignanu, sitting in front of him, he's trying to make that person look good. And that's not their job. These representatives are here to represent us. And I'm sure Representative Estes has been getting phone calls about problems with Social Security. And those are the questions that he should be asking, not these softball questions. And he did kind of mention, he was receiving phone calls on certain topics and all of this. But the reality is there's some real problems out there. He didn't talk about reform. I don't understand why we have representatives right now and Congress people in general that aren't talking about reform. You have the Social Security Commissioner sitting in front of you. Why not ask them the question of what's going on with the trust funds? When are we going to potentially see these trust funds completely depleted? Questions like that. How do you think we should move forward as Congress as far as a reform? These are the questions that he should be asking. And he failed to do that. And it's unfortunate, but I want to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.